A waitress approached a millionaire and told him not to close a deal with his best friend the next morning. There was a luxury car near her humble home. Marcus Bennett adjusted his cufflinks as he glanced around the luxurious café. This was supposed to be a celebratory day. He and his best friend Noah were about to finalize one of the biggest deals of their lives. A deal that would solidify their company's place at the top of the industry and ensure their financial success for years to come. The cafe buzzed with a flow of conversation, clinking silverware in the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Everything seemed perfect. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. "Noah, I'm going to use the restroom real quick," Marcus said, standing from the polished mahogany table. Noah, who had been scrolling through his phone, barely looked up, nodding absent-mindedly. Marcus walked away, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Years of hard work had led to this moment. He had ignored the small signs, Noah brushing off his questions about last-minute changes to the deal or the vague responses when they reviewed the latest financials. Marcus chalked it up to stress or Noah's usual quirks. Trust had always come easily between them, maybe too easily. But after years of relying on each other, it never occurred to him that his closest friend might see him as a stepping stone. He had built his empire alongside Noah, and together they were about to close a deal that would elevate them to new heights. But while Marcus was away, the atmosphere at the table shifted. Sophie, a young waitress who had been serving their table, approached to refill Noah's glass of water. She had been working at the cafe for a few months, always keeping her head down, never interfering in the conversations of the wealthy clientele who frequented the place. Today, however, was different. As she approached the table, she overheard a conversation that made her stop in her tracks. Noah, thinking no one was paying attention, was speaking quietly into his phone. His words sent a chill down Sophie's spine. "Everything's set. Marcus has no idea. Once the deal goes through, I'll have control of everything. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. I've been planning this for months. The company, the assets, it's all going to be mine." Sophie's hand trembled slightly, almost spilling the water as she quickly stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Noah, the man who was supposed to be Marcus's closest friend and business partner, was planning to betray him and take everything they had built together. She quickly retreated to the kitchen, trying to process what she had just overheard. She had no personal stake in this. After all, she was just a waitress, but something about the situation gnawed at her conscience. Could she really just walk away and pretend she hadn't heard anything? Moments later, Marcus returned to the table, completely unaware of the treacherous conversation that had taken place in his absence. Noah greeted him with a smile, masking his true intentions. Sophie watched from a distance, her mind racing. She had always been someone who kept to herself, but this was different. She couldn't just stand by and watch an innocent man get ruined by his own best friend. Gathering all the courage she could muster, Sophie decided she had to act. As Noah excused himself to take a call outside, Sophie saw her chance. Taking a deep breath, she walked over to Marcus's table, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. "Excuse me, mister," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked up, surprised that the waitress was addressing him directly. "Yes?" Sophie hesitated, her pulse racing, but there was no turning back now. "I overheard something you need to know," she said, glancing nervously toward the door where Noah had stepped outside. Marcus frowned, not understanding. "What do you mean?" "Your friend, Noah. I think he's planning to betray you. I heard him talking on the phone, saying he's going to take everything from you once the deal is finalized." Marcus blinked, taken aback by her words. His immediate instinct was to dismiss her. This was Noah, his closest friend, someone he had trusted for years. Why would she even suggest such a thing? I'm sorry, what?" Marcus asked, trying to process what he had just heard. His voice held a mix of confusion and disbelief. "I know this sounds crazy, but I swear I'm telling the truth," Sophie continued, her voice urgent. "I heard him say it himself. He's planning to take over your company and leave you with nothing." Marcus's initial shock began to melt into suspicion. Could this really be true? Was it possible that the man he had trusted for so long was planning such a betrayal? He glanced toward the door where Noah was still on the phone. Doubt crept into his mind, gnawing at the confidence he had always had in his friend. "You're sure about this?" he asked, his tone more serious now. Sophie nodded, her eyes wide with sincerity. "I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't. I couldn't let you go into that deal without knowing what I heard." Marcus sat back, his mind racing. He had known Noah since they were kids. They had built this company from the ground up together. The idea that Noah would betray him was almost unfathomable, but something about Sophie's demeanor made him pause. She didn't seem like someone who would lie about something like this. "Thank you," Marcus finally said, his voice quieter. "I appreciate you telling me this." Sophie nodded and quickly retreated, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. The celebration that had seemed so certain minutes ago now felt fragile, on the verge of collapsing. Marcus glanced at the contract on the table, his mind torn. If what Sophie had said was true, then signing this deal could be the biggest mistake of his life. He had to be sure. He had to find out the truth. And as Noah re-entered the café, smiling as if nothing had happened, Marcus knew one thing for certain. He couldn't trust anyone, not even his best friend, without knowing all the facts. Marcus sat at the table, his mind swirling with doubt and confusion. He watched Noah walk back toward him, smiling as if the world hadn't just shifted beneath Marcus's feet. Sophie's words echoed in his head. "He's planning to take over your company and leave you with nothing." It was impossible to reconcile this accusation with the person who had just rejoined him at the table. "Everything all right?" Noah asked casually, as he took his seat again, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside Marcus. Marcus forced a smile, though his stomach turned with uncertainty. "Yeah, just thinking over the deal." "You know how it is," he said, his voice as calm as he could manage. Noah nodded, taking a sip of his water. "I get it. Big decisions. But we've been working toward this for years. It's time to make it official." Marcus nodded absent-mindedly, staring down at the papers laid out before him. They had spent years building this business, and now they were on the brink of expanding it even further. But the words of a waitress, someone he had never met before today, had thrown everything into chaos. Could Noah really be capable of such betrayal? The thought gnawed at him. They had been through so much together. Marcus wanted to believe it was impossible, that Sophie had misheard or misunderstood something, but the sincerity in her voice, the urgency in her warning, made it difficult to brush off. "I'm thinking. I need a little more time," Marcus said slowly, his eyes still on the contract. Noah's brow furrowed slightly. "More time?" "Marcus, we've been over this deal for weeks. We're ready." "I know," Marcus replied, his voice measured, "but I just want to make sure everything's in order. No harm in double-checking, right?" There was a brief flicker of something in Noah's expression. Was it frustration? Annoyance? Marcus couldn't be sure, but it was enough to reinforce the growing doubt in his mind. "Of course," Noah said, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Whatever you need. But I think we're in a good place. This deal could change everything for us." Marcus forced another smile. "Exactly. Which is why I need to be certain." Noah leaned back in his chair, seemingly unfazed, though Marcus could feel the subtle shift in his demeanor. "Take your time, but don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come around often." Marcus nodded, his decision already made. He wasn't going to sign anything until he had more information. "I'll let you know soon," he said, standing up to leave. Noah stayed seated, still smiling, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the dynamic between them had changed. In that moment, there was a tension now, a hidden edge to Noah's words that hadn't been there before. Marcus walked out of the café, his thoughts a jumble of suspicion, disbelief, and worry. He didn't want to believe that his best friend could betray him, but he also knew he couldn't afford to be naive. Too much was at stake. As he stepped outside into the cool evening air, Sophie was waiting near the entrance, her expression anxious. She looked up as he approached, biting her lip nervously. "Did you talk to him?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. Marcus paused, not wanting to reveal too much just yet. "I didn't sign anything," he said, "but I need to find out more." Sophie nodded, relief washing over her face. "I was so worried. I didn't know if you'd believe me." Marcus studied her for a moment. "Why did you tell me?" Sophie hesitated, looking down at her shoes for a moment before meeting his eyes. I know it wasn't my place. I'm just a waitress. But when I heard what he said, I couldn't let you go through with it without warning you. It didn't seem right. Her honesty was disarming. She had nothing to gain from telling him this, yet she had taken the risk anyway. Marcus could see that she had been genuinely concerned for him, and that only deepened his confusion. I appreciate it, he said finally. You might have saved me from making a huge mistake. Sophie shifted awkwardly, clearly not used to this kind of attention. I'm just glad I could help. Marcus nodded, still feeling the weight of everything that had happened. He knew he needed more than just a warning to act. He needed proof. I'm going to hire someone to look into it, Marcus said, more to himself than to Sophie. I can't make any decisions until I know for sure. Sophie looked relieved that he was taking her seriously. That's probably smart. I hope it's not true for your sake. Marcus gave her a tight smile. Me too. As he walked away, Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. There was one person who could help him get to the bottom of this, a private investigator he had used in the past. He dialed the number. Adrian, it's Marcus Bennett, he said when the line picked up. I've got a situation, and I need your help. Over the next few minutes, Marcus explained what Sophie had told him, and the doubts gnawing at him. Adrian listened carefully, asked a few pointed questions, and agreed to start looking into Noah's finances immediately. I'll see what I can find, Adrian said. Give me a couple of days. Marcus hung up, a mix of relief and unease washing over him. He had taken the first step, but now came the hard part. Waiting. As he headed back to his car, Marcus glanced over his shoulder, half expecting Noah to step out of the café. In the days that followed, Marcus moved through meetings and business routines as if nothing had changed. But inside, everything had. Every conversation with Noah now felt like a game of chess. He smiled when expected, nodded at the right moments, but behind his calm facade, his mind raced. Noah never faltered. Meanwhile, Adrian was digging. I've got something, Adrian said. His tone was steady but serious. Marcus sat up. There are some irregularities in Marcus's stomach tightened. How much money are we talking about? Not huge sums, Adrian replied, but enough to make you wonder. I'm still looking for more details, but it's clear he's been setting something up behind the scenes. Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple. Do you think it's connected to what Sophie heard? It's possible, Adrian said. People don't move money offshore unless they're hiding something, or preparing for a big shift. My guess? He's making his move right after this deal closes. Marcus let out a slow breath. Sophie had been right. Noah wasn't just keeping secrets, he was planning something much bigger. Keep digging. I need more than suspicion. I need proof. I'll keep you updated, Adrian said, then hung up. Marcus stared out the window. The city buzzed below, oblivious to the chaos unraveling at the top. He thought about calling someone from his executive team, but stopped short. He'd built this company with his own hands, and too often he'd handled problems the same way, alone. Now that trust felt like a rare currency. Aside from Adrian, maybe Sophie too. Later that evening, Marcus met Noah for dinner, as they often did after long days. It was supposed to feel routine, but nothing about it did. Noah was already seated when Marcus arrived. His smile was easy, familiar. Marcus sat down, matching the expression. But behind the calm, every word Noah spoke felt calculated. They talked through the day's meetings, new business leads. Noah was his usual self, charming, persuasive, painting a bright future for the company. So what's the latest on the deal? Noah asked casually between bites of steak. Are we still moving forward with the timeline? Noah asked. Marcus paused, watching him carefully. I'm still reviewing a few things, he replied, keeping his tone even. I want to make sure everything's lined up before we finalize. Noah's eyes flickered, impatience maybe, but his smile returned just as quickly. Of course, no rush, he said smoothly. I just don't want us to miss out on this opportunity. Marcus gave a polite nod, concealing the fury roiling beneath his calm exterior. Noah sat there, relaxed, confident, pretending everything was fine, as if he hadn't spent months plotting to take it all. By morning, the tension hadn't lifted. Every smile from Noah the night before replayed in his mind, reeking of manipulation and hindsight. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was a looming reality. Just past noon, his phone rang. "Marcus," Adrian's voice was steady but urgent. "I've uncovered more. I think we're looking at the full picture now." Marcus straightened. "What did you find?" "There's been a pattern of transactions, small amounts moved regularly, just below internal detection thresholds. He's funneled company money into a personal offshore account. It's been going on for over a year." Marcus gripped the edge of his desk. "How much?" "Millions," Adrian said flatly. "Close to $5 million. And without that early tip, we might never have found it. He's been laying the groundwork for a full takeover." Marcus sat in stunned silence. $5 million, gone. It was an unimaginable betrayal. Not just because of the money, but because of the scope. Noah had been planning this little by little for over a year. He wasn't just taking advantage of an opportunity. He had been carefully orchestrating this downfall the whole time. Adrian continued. "I also found some communications that suggest Noah has been speaking with some of your business competitors. It looks like he's positioning himself to make a major play, possibly to take control of the company once this deal goes through. If you had signed the papers, you would have been handing everything over to him." Marcus's blood ran cold. All the signs had been there, but he had ignored them, blinded by trust and history. Noah had been positioning himself for months, building his network, diverting funds, and setting the stage for a full-blown takeover. And Marcus had been none the wiser. "Marcus, you need to act fast," Adrian said, his voice hardening. "This isn't just a few bad decisions. This is deliberate, calculated fraud. If you don't stop him now, he's going to make his move." Marcus gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. "What do we do?" he asked, though his mind was already racing with ideas. Adrian was calm, professional. "First, you need to freeze the accounts he's been using. We have enough evidence to justify it. Then confront him, but do it strategically. Don't let him know everything you have until you're ready to force his hand." Marcus nodded, his mind already working through the logistics. "I'll talk to my legal team right away. I need to make sure the company's protected before I confront him." "Good," Adrian replied. "I'll send you all the documentation I've gathered. You'll have everything you need to back this up legally." After the call ended, Marcus sat back, staring at the ceiling for a moment. It was all so much to process. Noah, the money, the betrayal, a year of carefully planned deceit, all while Marcus had trusted him implicitly. The rage simmered just beneath the surface, but he couldn't let it cloud his judgment. He had to be smart about this. Noah wasn't just a friend turned traitor. He was a formidable opponent who had been playing a long game. But now Marcus had the upper hand. He quickly called his legal team, detailing everything Adrian had uncovered. His attorneys immediately began drafting the necessary documents to freeze the accounts and prevent Noah from accessing any more company funds. Marcus felt a surge of relief, knowing that for now, he could stop Noah from causing further damage. But that relief was short-lived. The next step was confronting Noah, and Marcus knew it wouldn't be easy. Noah was cunning, manipulative, and worst of all, had no idea Marcus was on to him. As the day wore on, Marcus's resolve hardened. He was going to confront Noah, but he needed to do it on his terms. If Noah had been plotting this betrayal for over a year, then Marcus had to be prepared for anything. That evening, Marcus arranged to meet Noah at a private office space they often used for confidential discussions. The setting felt right for what was coming. Neutral, professional, and away from prying eyes. Noah arrived as scheduled, greeting Marcus with the same easy charm that now felt like poison. "Hey man," Noah said with a grin as he walked in. "I've been thinking about the deal, how close we are to making it official." Marcus forced himself to remain calm. He gestured toward the chairs. "Have a seat. We need to talk." Noah's smile faltered slightly as he took a seat across from Marcus, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "What's going on? Something wrong?" Marcus stared at him for a long moment, the weight of their history crashing against the reality of the present. He could still hardly believe that the man sitting across from him, someone he had trusted for most of his life, was capable of such betrayal. "I know everything, Noah," Marcus said finally, his voice steady but laced with anger. "The offshore accounts, the stolen money, the plans you've been making behind my back." Noah's face blanched, but he quickly recovered, leaning back in his chair with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus. You've been working too hard. Maybe you're imagining things." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "I hired a private investigator. We've got the evidence. Every transfer, every communication. You've been planning this for over a year." The room was thick with tension. Noah's confident facade cracked for just a moment, revealing the truth beneath. He had been caught. The tension in the room was palpable. Noah sat across from Marcus, the confident smirk that usually graced his face slowly fading. He was calculating his next move, but Marcus had cornered him. The moment had finally come. Marcus's anger simmered beneath the surface, but he kept his voice steady. "I trusted you, Noah. We've built this company together, and now you've been siphoning money, positioning yourself to take everything. How long have you been planning this?" Noah leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, trying to maintain a facade of nonchalance. "Marcus, you're blowing this out of proportion. Whatever you think you've discovered, it's not what it looks like." Marcus scoffed, unable to believe Noah was still trying to play games. "Not what it looks like? I've seen the transfers, Noah. Millions of dollars. You've been moving money into offshore accounts, making deals with our competitors. Behind my back. This isn't a misunderstanding. You've been planning to take over the company, and you thought I wouldn't notice." Noah's face hardened. The charm he usually wore like armor was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "All right," he said, his voice dropping its usual warmth. "You want the truth? Fine, yeah, I've been planning this. You didn't leave me much choice." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Noah leaned forward, his tone bitter. "Do you have any idea what it's been like? Standing by your side, watching you take all the glory while I get the scraps? We started this company together, but you've always been the golden boy, the one everyone praises. I've been the one doing the dirty work, making sure everything runs smoothly while you get the credit." Marcus stared at him, a mixture of shock and disgust bubbling up inside him. "That's what this is about? Your ego? You think you deserve more, so you decide to steal from me, from the company we built?" Noah's voice grew harsher, his frustration boiling over. "It's not about stealing, it's about what's fair. I put just as much into this company as you did, but you're the one everyone looks to. You're the one people respect. I'm just the guy in the background. I'm done with that." Marcus's anger flared. "You think this justifies stealing millions? Destroying everything we've worked for? I would have been willing to talk about restructuring, about giving you more recognition, but you chose to betray me instead." Noah's eyes flashed with resentment. "Talk? You wouldn't have done anything. You've always kept me in your shadow, and I wasn't going to wait any longer. I deserve more, and I was going to take it." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "You're unbelievable. All of this because of jealousy? I never once thought of you as beneath me, Noah. We were partners, but you?" Marcus paused, the weight of betrayal crushing him. "You ruined it. You destroyed everything because of your own insecurities." Noah's expression darkened. "You don't get it, do you? I didn't have a choice. I've been putting up with this for too long. This deal was my way out. I was finally going to get what I deserved." Marcus stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "No, Noah, you weren't going to get anything. You thought you could take over, but I've already frozen the accounts. I have the evidence, and I'm not letting you destroy what we built." Noah's eyes widened in shock. "You what?" "I've already spoken to the legal team. Your accounts are frozen. You can't access any more of the money you've been siphoning off." For the first time, true fear flickered across Noah's face. He stood abruptly, his voice rising in panic. "You can't do that. This was supposed to be my chance. I've been planning this for too long." Marcus remained calm, his voice steady. "It's over, Noah. You've been caught. There's no way out of this. You've betrayed me, the company, and yourself." Noah's face contorted with rage. You think you've won, don't you? You think freezing my accounts is enough?" "I have connections, Marcus. You have no idea what you're up against." Marcus met his gaze evenly. "I know exactly what I'm up against, and I'm not afraid of you, or your so-called connections. You're finished, Noah." Noah took a step back, his bravado crumbling as the reality of the situation set in. He was trapped, and he knew it. His years of planning, his meticulous scheme to take over the company, It was all unraveling before his eyes. "You'll regret this," Noah muttered, his voice low and filled with venom. "You'll regret coming after me." Marcus didn't flinch. "I regret trusting you. I regret ever considering you a friend." With that, Noah stormed out of the room, leaving Marcus standing alone in the empty office. The weight of the confrontation pressed down on him, but there was also a sense of relief. He had taken the first step toward protecting his company, his legacy, but the cost had been high. Higher than he could have ever imagined. Marcus sat back down at the table, his head in his hands. The betrayal cut deep, but there was no time for self-pity. He had to focus on moving forward, on rebuilding what Noah had tried to destroy. As he sat there, the door opened quietly, and Sophie stepped into the room. She had been waiting outside, sensing that something important was happening. She approached cautiously, her expression filled with concern. "Marcus?" she asked softly. Marcus looked up, his face weary but resolute. "It's done. Noah's gone." Sophie hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from him. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice full of sympathy. Marcus nodded slowly. "I should have seen it coming. I trusted him, and he betrayed me." Sophie placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You did what you had to do. You stopped him before it was too late." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to let go of the weight that had settled on his chest. "Thanks to you." Sophie gave him a small smile. "I'm just glad I could help." They sat in silence for a moment, the reality of the situation sinking in. Marcus knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be legal battles, fallout from Noah's actions, and the challenge of rebuilding the company's reputation. But for the first time in days, Marcus felt a glimmer of hope. With Sophie by his side, he wasn't facing this alone. The next morning, Marcus sat at his desk, still absorbing the events of the previous day. Noah was gone. His betrayal revealed, and his plan to take over the company was in ruins. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off Marcus's shoulders. But the aftermath lingered like a dark cloud. The betrayal hurt more than he had anticipated. And though he had stopped Noah, the emotional toll weighed heavily on him. As he stared out the window, watching the city skyline, his mind kept returning to one thought. Sophie, the young waitress who had risked everything to tell him the truth. Without her, Marcus would likely have signed the deal, unknowingly handing his company to Noah. She had saved him from losing everything. Marcus knew he couldn't just move forward without acknowledging what Sophie had done for him. He had to thank her. Not just with words, but by offering her something in return. Her courage had changed everything for him. He picked up his phone and dialed the cafe where Sophie worked. When the manager picked up, Marcus asked if Sophie was working that day. After a few moments of waiting, the manager informed him that Sophie wasn't on shift. Marcus decided he would go see her in person. Later that afternoon, Marcus drove to the modest neighborhood where Sophie lived. The area was a stark contrast to the luxury he was accustomed to. Small homes lined up in neat rows, with narrow streets and aging cars parked in front. It reminded him that not everyone lived in the world of power and wealth that he did. For a moment, Marcus hesitated in the driver's seat. A part of him still wrestled with the fact that he hadn't seen the betrayal coming, that it had taken a young woman from outside his world to open his eyes. He had built an empire, yet missed the rot at its core. That failure stung, and it made Sophie's courage all the more humbling. He parked his car and approached the small, weathered house Sophie shared with her mother. Marcus took a deep breath before knocking on the door, feeling a rare sense of nervousness. He wasn't sure how Sophie would react to him showing up at her home, but he hoped she would understand why he had come. After a few moments, the door opened, and Sophie stood in the doorway, surprised to see Marcus standing there. "Mr. Bennett?" she asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you doing here?" Marcus offered a small smile. "I came to thank you properly." Sophie stepped aside, gesturing for him to come in. "You didn't have to come all this way." Marcus stepped inside, taking in the modest interior of the home. It was clean and well kept, but it was clear that Sophie and her mother were living with limited means. There were signs of wear on the furniture, and the air was filled with the faint scent of herbal tea. It was a far cry from the world Marcus normally inhabited, making him appreciate even more the Sophie had faced. Sophie led him to the small living room where they sat on an old, faded couch. She looked at him curiously, clearly unsure of what to expect. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," Marcus began, his tone sincere, "and I realized that if you hadn't spoken up that day, I would have lost everything. You didn't have to get involved, but you did, and that means more to me than I can put into words." Sophie shifted uncomfortably, clearly not used to being the focus of such attention. "I just did what anyone would have done," she said quietly. "I couldn't let him do that to you." Marcus shook his head. "No, not everyone would have done what you did. Most people would have stayed quiet, thinking it wasn't their place. But you didn't. You took a risk, and you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Sophie's cheeks flushed slightly at the praise, but she remained humble. "I just did what I thought was right." Marcus smiled at her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Well, I want to repay you for that. I know from our conversations that you had to give up school to take care of your mother. I'd like to help you finish your education, if that's something you're still interested in." Sophie's eyes widened in shock. "You mean, you'd help me go back to school?" Marcus nodded. "I know you have a passion for economics, and I think you have a lot of potential. I want to make sure you get the opportunity to finish what you started. And if you're interested, I'd also like to offer you a position at my company. You've already shown you have good instincts, and I could use someone like you on my team." Sophie stared at him, her emotions a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "This is more than I ever expected." Marcus smiled warmly. "You've earned it. You helped me when you didn't have to. This is my way of saying thank you." Tears welled up in Sophie's eyes, and she blinked them away quickly, trying to keep her composure. "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Bennett. This means everything to me." Marcus reached out and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, Sophie. Just take this opportunity and make the most of it. I believe in you." Sophie nodded, still overwhelmed by the generosity of his offer. "I will. I promise." Marcus stood up, feeling lighter now that he had repaid the debt he felt to Sophie. As he walked to the door, he turned back to her. "I'll have my team reach out to you about the details, but for now, just focus on taking care of your mother and thinking about what you want to do next." Sophie smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I'll never forget this." Marcus gave her a final nod before stepping out into the cool evening air. As he walked back to his car, he felt a sense of closure. For the first time since Noah's betrayal, he felt like he was truly moving forward. Sophie's courage had changed everything for him, and now he had given her the chance to change her life as well. It wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about helping someone who had helped him when he needed it most. And that, more than anything, gave Marcus a sense of peace. The days following Marcus's visit to Sophie's home were a whirlwind of change for both of them. Sophie spent much of her time thinking about the opportunity Marcus had offered her. Going back to school had always been a distant dream, ever since she had put her education on hold to care for her mother. Now, that dream was suddenly within reach, and the possibility of working at Marcus's company felt like a chance she had never even imagined. Despite her excitement, there was also hesitation. Sophie had grown accustomed to keeping her head down and not drawing attention to herself. She had always been the kind of person who helped others quietly, without expecting anything in return. Now she was being given the chance to step into a new world, and it both thrilled and terrified her. Meanwhile, Marcus had already spoken with his team, ensuring that everything was in place for Sophie to start at the company whenever she was ready. He wanted to give her time to think about her decision, knowing it wasn't something she could rush, but he was confident she would accept. He had seen the spark of ambition in her eyes, and he knew she was capable of great things. A week later, Sophie made her decision. Marcus was in his office going over some paperwork when his assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Bennett, Sophie Adams is here to see you." Marcus felt a surge of anticipation. He had been waiting to hear from her. "Send her in." The door opened, and Sophie stepped inside, looking a little nervous but determined. Marcus stood up, offering her a warm smile. "Sophie, it's good to see you," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "How are you feeling?" Sophie sat down, clasping her hands together in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about your offer," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves, "and I've decided that I want to accept it, both the chance to go back to school and the position at your company." Marcus's smile broadened. "I'm glad to hear that. I knew you'd make the right choice." Sophie let out a breath. "It's a little overwhelming, to be honest. I never thought I'd be in a position like this." Marcus nodded. "I know it's a big step, but you've already proven you have what it takes. You've got great instincts, and with your background in economics, you'll bring a fresh perspective to the team. And as for school, we'll make sure you have the flexibility to balance both." Sophie gave a small smile. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I really appreciate this." Marcus leaned forward. "You've earned it, Sophie." Sophie nodded. "I'll do my best." "I know you will," Marcus replied. "And remember, if you ever need help, my door's always open. I want you to know that this isn't just about repaying a favor. I see real potential in you, Sophie. You've already shown you can handle difficult situations with grace and intelligence. I'm confident that with the right support, you'll thrive here." Sophie felt a swell of emotion at his words. She had always been a hard worker, but no one had ever shown this level of belief in her before. It was both inspiring and daunting, but Marcus's confidence in her gave her the strength to push through her doubts. "I won't let you down," she said, her voice filled with determination. Marcus smiled again, clearly pleased. "I have no doubt about that. We'll get started on the paperwork for your school enrollment, and in the meantime, we can begin integrating you into the company. You'll have a mentor assigned to help. You get settled, and I'll be here to guide you whenever you need." Sophie nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one that held endless possibilities. The fear was still there, but so was the excitement. After they finished discussing the details of her new role and her school plans, Sophie stood to leave. She felt lighter, as though a huge burden had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she was allowing herself to dream again. As she reached the door, she turned back to Marcus. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett, for everything." Marcus gave her a kind smile. "You've earned this, Sophie. Welcome to the team." Over the next few weeks, Sophie began her new journey. The transition from waitress to corporate employee was daunting at first, but Marcus's company was a supportive environment. Her coworkers were welcoming, and her mentor, a woman named Sandra, took her under her wing immediately. Sandra was patient, knowledgeable, and always ready to answer Sophie's questions, no matter how small. At first, Sophie struggled with the learning curve. The corporate world was vastly different from the café, with its complex hierarchies, financial reports, and strategic planning sessions. But with each passing day, Sophie became more confident. She absorbed everything like a sponge, applying her background in economics to her work and impressing her colleagues with her keen insights. Marcus, meanwhile, kept a watchful eye on her progress. He could see that she was thriving, and it gave him a sense of satisfaction to know he had been right about her potential. Sophie was more than just the waitress who had saved him from a disastrous deal. She was proving to be a valuable asset to the company. In the background of all this, Marcus's legal team continued to work through the fallout from Noah's betrayal. The company's accounts were secure, and Noah's offshore funds had been frozen. But there was still much to untangle. Marcus knew the process would be long and exhausting, but with Sophie's help, he felt more prepared to handle whatever came next. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Sophie found herself staying late, working on a project for Sandra. The office was quiet, most of the employees having gone home for the day. As she sat at her desk reviewing financial reports, she felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in a long time. She was where she was meant to be. Just as she was packing up to leave, Marcus walked by her desk, surprised to see her still there. "Sophie, you're still here?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Sophie looked up, smiling. "Just finishing up some work for Sandra," Marcus chuckled. "You don't have to burn the midnight oil every night, you know?" Sophie shrugged, her smile widening. "I don't mind. I actually enjoy it." Marcus leaned against the doorframe, watching her for a moment. "You're doing great work, Sophie. I hope you know that." Sophie felt a flush of pride at his words. Thanks, Mr. Bennett. That means a lot coming from you. Marcus nodded, then straightened up. Well, don't stay too late. You need time for yourself, too. Sophie smiled and nodded. As Marcus walked away, she watched him go, feeling a sense of gratitude for the opportunity he had given her, and for the faith he had placed in her. As she finally gathered her things and headed for the door, she couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to accomplish, and for the first time in a long time, Sophie truly believed that she could achieve it all. Sophie's days at the company began to fall into a rhythm. She would arrive early, eager to tackle the challenges that awaited her, and leave late, constantly striving to learn and improve. She was determined to make the most of the opportunity Marcus had given her, and she wasn't going to let anything stand in her way. Over the next few weeks, her contributions to the company became more significant, and she quickly earned the respect of her colleagues. Her mentor, Sandra, continued to guide her through the complexities of corporate finance and operations. Under Sandra's tutelage, Sophie became proficient at analyzing financial reports, identifying potential issues, and suggesting solutions that no one else had considered. Her fresh perspective, combined with her natural intelligence, made her stand out. Sandra was impressed with how quickly Sophie was adapting. "You've got a real talent for this, Sophie," she said one afternoon as they reviewed a particularly complicated financial forecast. "It's like you've been doing this for years." Sophie smiled, feeling the familiar rush of pride that came whenever someone acknowledged her hard work. "I guess I'm just motivated to prove myself." "You don't need to prove anything," Sandra replied. "You've already shown you belong here. The work you've done so far has been exceptional." Sophie was grateful for Sandra's encouragement. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, always feeling like she was one step behind everyone else. But now, for the first time, she felt like she was on equal footing, capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. The corporate world was still a far cry from her old life as a waitress, but Sophie had found her footing. Her background in economics allowed her to see things from a unique angle, and she often brought ideas to the table that others hadn't considered. "You have a real gift for this." Sophie felt a rush of gratitude. "That means a lot coming from you," she replied. Marcus's smile grew wider. "I'm glad to hear that. I've been thinking about how we can further develop your role here. You've already proven yourself capable of handling more responsibility, and I'd like to see you take on a leadership position." Sophie blinked in surprise. "A leadership position?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I want to put you in charge of a new project. We're launching an expansion into a new market. You'd be working directly with me to develop the strategy, analyze the financials, and oversee the implementation. It's a big step, but I think you're ready for it." Sophie's mind raced. A leadership position. She had only been at the company for a short time, and now Marcus was asking her to take on such a significant role. It was both thrilling and terrifying. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "I'm honored, but are you sure I'm ready for something like this?" Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious but encouraging. "I wouldn't offer it to you if I didn't think you were ready. You've earned this, Sophie. You have the skills, the vision, and the work ethic to make this project a success." Sophie hesitated for a moment, still processing the enormity of the opportunity. But as she looked into Marcus's eyes, she realized that he truly believed in her. His faith in her abilities gave her the confidence she needed to say, "Yes, I'd be honored to take on the project," Sophie said, her voice filled with determination. "I won't let you down," Marcus smiled, satisfied with her response. "I know you won't. We'll start planning next week, but in the meantime, take the weekend to relax. You've earned it." Sophie nodded, her mind still spinning from the conversation. As she left Marcus's office, she couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. She had just been given the chance to lead a major project, something she had never imagined happening so soon. It was an incredible responsibility, but she was ready to take it on. Over the next few days, Sophie threw herself into preparations for the new project. She worked closely with Marcus and Sandra, gathering data, analyzing market trends, and developing a comprehensive strategy. The project was ambitious. It involved expanding the company's reach into international markets, a move that could significantly increase their revenue, but also came with its own set of challenges. Sophie quickly realized that this was no small task. There were countless variables to consider, from local regulations to cultural differences to financial risks, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt energized. Every day was a new challenge, and she thrived in the fast-paced environment. As the project progressed, Sophie began to see the bigger picture of how the company operated on a global scale. She was learning more than she ever had in school, and with Marcus's guidance, she felt more confident in her decisions. Marcus's trust in her never wavered, and their working relationship grew stronger as they navigated the complexities of the expansion together. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Marcus pulled Sophie aside. They were standing by the large windows in the office, overlooking the city as the sun set behind the skyscrapers. "I wanted to tell you something, Sophie," Marcus said, his tone more serious than usual. Sophie looked at him, curious. "What is it?" Marcus paused for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking a lot about the past few months, and everything we've been through. Noah's betrayal, the work we've done to protect the company, and this new project. I couldn't have done any of it without you." Sophie blinked, taken aback by his words. "I'm just doing my part, Mr. Bennett." Marcus shook his head. "No, you've done more than that. You've proven that you're not just another employee, you're a leader, and I want you to know how much I appreciate that." Sophie felt a swell of emotion. She had never expected this when she first warned Marcus about Noah, but now she was standing here, shoulder to shoulder with him, helping to shape the future of the company. It was more than she had ever dreamed possible. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me." Marcus smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I know I've said this before, but you've earned everything that's come your way. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together." Sophie nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She knew there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly capable of handling them. Together, they turned to watch the sunset, knowing that a new chapter was just beginning. The expansion project that Sophie was leading was moving ahead faster than expected. Under her leadership and Marcus's guidance, the company was making significant strides toward breaking into the international market. Every day brought new challenges, but Sophie embraced them, confident in her abilities and the support she had from her team. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Just as Sophie and Marcus were beginning to feel the momentum of their success, an unexpected issue arose. Noah. Marcus hadn't heard from Noah since their last confrontation, and he had assumed that Noah had left the city quietly. The legal battles were ongoing, but Marcus had largely put his former friend out of his mind. That was until one morning when he arrived at the office to find a grim-faced security officer waiting outside his door. Sophie felt a swell of emotion. She had never expected this when she first warned Marcus about Noah. But now, she was standing here, shoulder to shoulder with him, helping to shape the future of the company. It was more than she had ever dreamed possible. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me." Marcus smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I know I've said this before, but you've earned everything that's come your way. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together." Sophie nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She knew there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly capable of handling them. Together, they turned to watch the sunset, knowing that a new chapter was just beginning. The expansion project that Sophie was leading was moving ahead faster than expected. Under her leadership and Marcus's guidance, the company was making significant strides toward breaking into the international market. Every day brought new challenges, but Sophie embraced them, confident in her abilities and the support she had from her team. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Just as Sophie and Marcus were beginning to feel the momentum of their success, an unexpected issue arose. Noah. Marcus hadn't heard from Noah since their last confrontation, and he had assumed that Noah had left the city quietly. The legal battles were ongoing, but Marcus had largely put his former friend out of his mind. That was until one morning when he arrived at the office to find a grim-faced security officer waiting outside his door. "Mr. Bennett, I think you should see this. the officer said, handing Marcus a sealed envelope. Marcus frowned as he took the envelope, his name printed neatly across the front. He could feel something heavy inside, a USB drive. He opened it carefully, sliding the small device out and holding it in his hand. "Where did this come from?" Marcus asked. "It was delivered to the front desk this morning," the officer explained. "No return address, just your name." Marcus's mind raced. It had been months since Noah's betrayal, and while his legal team was handling the frozen accounts and the fallout, Marcus had largely moved on. But now, seeing the envelope and the mysterious USB drive, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was connected to Noah. "Thanks," Marcus said quietly, dismissing the officer. He quickly made his way into his office, locking the door behind him. He sat at his desk, staring at the USB drive in his hand, wondering if he should open it or contact Adrian, his investigator, first. After a moment of deliberation, Marcus plugged the drive into his computer. A single video file popped up on the screen. Heart pounding, he clicked on it, and the video began to play. The grainy footage showed Noah sitting in what looked like a hotel room. He wore a smug expression, leaning back in his chair as he addressed the camera directly. "Marcus," Noah's voice filled the room, dripping with disdain. "By now, you're probably thinking you've won. You froze my accounts, cut me off from the company, and ruined everything I worked for. But here's the thing, you didn't destroy me. Not by a long shot." Marcus clenched his jaw, anger rising in his chest. As Noah's words filled his ears, "I've still got cards to play," he continued, his smirk widening. "And I've been busy since our little fallout. You think you can just take everything from me and walk away clean? I don't think so. I've been gathering information that could destroy you, your company, and everything you've built. You might have caught me off guard last time, but now I'm prepared." Marcus's hands tightened into fists as Noah's words struck home. What kind of information did Noah have? Was it real, or was this just another one of his manipulative plays? Noah leaned closer to the camera, his expression darkening. "I've made connections, Marcus. Powerful ones. And I'm not just talking about the business world. You might want to check the headlines soon. Let's just say when the media gets a hold of what I have, your precious reputation will be in tatters." The video ended abruptly, leaving Marcus staring at the screen in stunned silence. His mind raced. What could Noah possibly have on him? Marcus had always been cautious, making sure his dealings were above board. But Noah was resourceful. If he had managed to dig up something damaging, even if it wasn't true, the mere implication could ruin everything. Marcus sat back in his chair, breathing heavily as the reality of the situation set in. Noah was back, and this time, he was playing dirty. The legal battles had been one thing, but now Noah was threatening to destroy Marcus's reputation through the media. It was a new kind of warfare, one that could unravel everything Marcus had built, both personally and professionally. Without wasting any more time, Marcus grabbed his phone and dialed Adrian. "Adrian, it's Marcus. We've got a problem," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "What's going on?" Adrian asked immediately, picking up on Marcus's tone. "It's Noah. He just sent me a video, and he's threatening to go public with something. Says he's been gathering information on me, and he's planning to leak it to the media." Adrian was silent for a moment. Then his voice came through the line, calm and focused. "All right, don't panic. We need to handle this carefully. First, send me the video. I'll have my team analyze it and see if there's any way to trace where it was filmed. We need to find out where Noah is and what he's really planning." Marcus nodded, even though Adrian couldn't see him. "I'll send it over right away." "Good. In the meantime, don't engage with him. He's trying to provoke a reaction, and the more calm, calculated we are, the better chance we have of stopping him before he does any real damage." Marcus hung up the phone and immediately sent the video to Adrian. He leaned back in his chair, trying to steady his breathing. Noah was dangerous, and now more than ever, Marcus needed to be one step ahead. But this wasn't just about business anymore. Noah was out for revenge, and he wasn't going to stop until Marcus was ruined. As the hours passed, Marcus worked closely with his legal team and Adrian's investigators to prepare PR for whatever Noah might throw at him. But despite their efforts, there was no way to predict exactly what Noah had planned. The uncertainty gnawed at Marcus, making it hard to focus on anything else. Later that evening, as Marcus sat in his office, Sophie knocked on the door. "Marcus?" she asked softly, stepping inside when he waved her in. "I heard there's something going on. Are you all right?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's Noah. He's back, and he's threatening to go public with something damaging. I don't know what he has, but it could be bad." Sophie's face fell, her expression filled with concern. "I thought he was gone for good." "So did I," Marcus replied, his voice tight, "but apparently I underestimated him." Sophie sat down across from him, her eyes searching his face. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Marcus looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude for her loyalty. She had been by his side through everything, and now, more than ever, he needed people he could trust. "Just keep doing what you've been doing," Marcus said finally. "I'm handling it, but I might need your support if this gets worse." Sophie nodded, her expression resolute. "You can count on me, Marcus. Whatever happens, we'll get through it together." Marcus gave her a small, grateful smile. "Thanks, Sophie. That means a lot." The tension in the air was thick. In the days following Noah's threat, Marcus had barely slept, his mind consumed with worry over what Noah might have in store. Every morning he checked the news, bracing himself for a potential bombshell, but so far there had been nothing. It was as if Noah was playing a waiting game, letting the anticipation gnaw away at Marcus's nerves. Adrian and his team worked tirelessly to gather as much information as possible. They managed to trace the video back to a small, nondescript hotel on the outskirts of the city. Adrian had dispatched a team to investigate, but Noah had already checked out by the time they arrived. "He's being careful," Adrian said during one of their daily calls. "He's not staying in one place for too long, which means he knows we're looking for him." Marcus's frustration mounted as the days passed without any sign of resolution. Noah had vanished again, but the threat of his next move loomed over everything. Even in the office, the usual rhythm of work felt disrupted. Sophie, ever the steady hand, kept things running smoothly, but she could see the strain on Marcus's face. One evening, as Marcus sat alone in his office, scrolling through the endless reports from Adrian's team, his phone buzzed on the desk. It was Adrian. "We've got something," Adrian said, his tone serious but tinged with relief. Noah slipped up. Marcus sat up straighter, his pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" "One of our guys managed to intercept a message Noah sent to a media contact. He's been trying to sell a story about you, but it's all built on lies. He's fabricating details, mixing in half-truths, and it seems like he's desperate to get something published before anyone can verify the facts." Marcus felt a wave of both relief and anger. So Noah's evidence wasn't legitimate, it was a smear campaign. He was trying to ruin Marcus's reputation through deception. "What's the story?" Marcus asked, dreading the answer. "He's spinning a narrative about financial misconduct, saying you've been involved in illegal deals with foreign companies and that you've been using offshore accounts to hide profits. It's all smoke and mirrors, but he's trying to make it sound credible." Marcus exhaled slowly, the knot in his stomach loosening just slightly. "Can we stop him?" "We're already on it," Adrian assured him. "I've contacted the media outlets he's been talking to, and we're getting ahead of the story. We've got our own narrative, backed by facts, ready to go. Once we present the real story about Noah's betrayal, the stolen funds, the offshore accounts he was using, it'll completely discredit anything he tries to say about you." Marcus nodded, feeling some of the weight lifting off his shoulders. "What about Noah? Can we stop him from trying this again?" "That's the other part of the good news," Adrian said. "We've got enough evidence now to take legal action. Between the frozen accounts, the financial records we've uncovered, and this latest attempt to smear you, we've built a solid case. I've already spoken to your legal team, and they're ready to move forward. Noah's running out of options." Marcus leaned back in his chair, the tension that had been gripping him for days finally beginning to ease. "So this is it? We can finally put an end to this?" Adrian's voice was firm. "Yes, we're shutting him down, legally and publicly." The call ended, and Marcus sat in silence for a few moments, letting the relief wash over him. Noah had come at him with everything he had, but in the end, his lies had unraveled. Marcus had weathered the storm, and now the tables were turning. Later that evening, Marcus met with his legal team to finalize their strategy. They were going to file a lawsuit against Noah for defamation, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. It was the final nail in the coffin for Noah's schemes. He wouldn't be able to hide behind his lies any longer. As the legal wheels began to turn, Marcus felt a renewed sense of determination. This wasn't just about protecting himself anymore. It was about standing up to someone who had betrayed him in the worst possible way. Noah had tried to destroy him, but Marcus wasn't going to let him get away with it. The following morning, the news broke. Marcus's legal team had issued a statement to the press detailing Noah's actions, the financial misconduct, the theft, the attempt to frame Marcus. The media quickly picked up the story, and within hours, Noah's name was splashed across headlines as the villain in a corporate scandal. Marcus watched from his office as the news unfolded, feeling a sense of vindication. Noah had tried to destroy his reputation, but now the truth was out, and it was Noah who would be facing the consequences. Sophie knocked softly on his door and stepped inside, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "I saw the news," she said quietly. "It looks like everything's finally coming to light." Marcus nodded, his gaze still on the screen. "It's over. At least the worst of it. Noah's going to have to face the consequences of what he's done." Sophie moved closer, standing by his desk. "You've been through a lot these past few months. I'm just glad you came out on top." Marcus glanced up at her, grateful for her steady presence. "I couldn't have done it without you, Sophie. You've been by my side through all of this." Sophie smiled, her eyes softening. "I'm just glad I could help." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the past few months finally starting to lift. Noah's threats had been neutralized, and Marcus could finally begin to focus on the future. But as he looked at Sophie, he realized that the future wasn't just about business anymore. "You've been more than just a help," Marcus said, his voice quieter now. "You've become someone I rely on, someone I trust." Sophie's expression softened further, and she gave a small nod. "I feel the same way." Marcus smiled at her, feeling a warmth that had been missing for so long. "I think we make a pretty good team." Sophie laughed softly. "I think so too." The tension of the past few weeks slowly melted away, replaced by a sense of peace and closure. Noah had tried to tear them apart, but instead he had strengthened the bond between them. Marcus stood up, extending his hand to Sophie. "Let's get back to work. We've got a lot to look forward to." Sophie took his hand, smiling. "Absolutely. Together." They stepped out of the office, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. With Noah's defeat behind them, the company began to settle back into its regular rhythm. The media had moved on to the next big story, and the legal battles surrounding Noah were well underway. Marcus felt a sense of closure he hadn't thought possible just a few weeks before. The storm had passed, and now he could focus on what truly mattered: the future of his company and the people who had stood by him through it all. Sophie continued to excel in her new leadership role. The expansion project she had been tasked with was nearing completion, and every day she proved that Marcus's trust in her had been well placed. Her attention to detail, her sharp analytical skills, and her ability to see beyond the surface made her an invaluable asset to the team. Everyone in the company had come to respect her, not just because she was smart and hardworking, but because she had shown courage and integrity when it mattered most. One afternoon, as Sophie was wrapping up a meeting with the international team, Marcus called her into his office. She entered with her usual smile, though she was still sometimes surprised by how much had changed in such a short time. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, taking a seat across from his desk. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through these past few months," he began, his voice calm but serious. "And I realize that I owe you more than just a thank you." Sophie tilted her head slightly, unsure of where the conversation was going. "You've already done so much, Marcus. I don't expect anything more." Marcus smiled warmly. "That's just the thing. You've never expected anything, even though you've earned it. And that's what makes you special. You've gone above and beyond, not just for me, but for the company. And I think it's time we recognize that." Sophie's eyes widened slightly, a sense of anticipation building inside her. I want to offer you a permanent leadership role, Marcus continued, his voice steady and sincere. You've proven that you're capable of handling high-level responsibilities, and I think it's time for you to have a seat at the executive table. I'd like you to become part of the senior management team, overseeing our international operations. Sophie blinked, her heart racing. You mean, you want me to take on a permanent leadership role? Marcus nodded. Yes, you've shown me, and everyone else in this company, that you're more than qualified. You've been instrumental in helping us expand, and I can't think of anyone better suited for this position. For a moment, Sophie was speechless. She had started out as a waitress warning Marcus about a betrayal she had overheard, never expecting anything in return. And now, here she was, being offered one of the most prestigious positions in the company. I don't know what to say, she finally whispered, overwhelmed with emotion. This is more than I ever imagined. Marcus smiled, leaning forward. You've earned every bit of it, and I want you to know that this isn't just about what you've done for me personally. It's about what you've brought to this company. The ideas, the innovation, the leadership, you've made us better. Tears pricked corners of Sophie's eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I'll do everything I can to live up to it. I have no doubt that you will, Marcus said with a warm smile. And don't worry, you won't be doing it alone. We'll be working together closely, just like we have been. I'm excited to see what we can accomplish. Sophie nodded, her heart full of gratitude. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and now she felt like everything was finally falling into place. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was her future, her career, and her chance to make a real difference. As she stood to leave, Marcus stopped her with a gentle smile. There's one more thing. Sophie turned back, curious. We're having a celebration next week, Marcus explained. It's for the entire company to celebrate the success of the expansion project, but I also want to take that opportunity to officially announce your new role to everyone. Sophie's heart fluttered at the thought. She had always been someone who preferred to work behind the scenes, but now she was being asked to step into the spotlight. It was daunting, but also exciting. I'd be honored, she said softly, feeling a swell of pride. Marcus stood up, extending his hand to her again. Then it's settled. Welcome to the leadership team, Sophie. Sophie shook his hand, smiling through her tears. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. The celebration came quickly, and the atmosphere at the company was electric. The event was held in a grand ballroom with all the employees in attendance, from the newest hires to the senior management team. There was an air of excitement and pride, knowing that the company had weathered the storm of Noah's betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. Marcus took the stage, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. He spoke about the challenges they had faced, the success of the expansion, and the bright future ahead for the company. As he spoke, Sophie stood off to the side, feeling a sense of awe at how far they had come. And now, Marcus said, his voice carried through the room, I'd like to recognize someone who has played a crucial role in our success, someone who has shown extraordinary courage, intelligence, and leadership. Sophie Adams. The room erupted into applause as Marcus gestured for Sophie to join him on stage. Her heart raced as she walked up, her hands trembling slightly, but she held her head high. This was her moment. Sophie has been a key part of our success, Marcus continued, and today I'm proud to announce that she will be taking on a permanent leadership role, overseeing our international operations as part of our senior management team. The applause grew louder, and Sophie felt a surge of pride and gratitude. She had worked hard to get here, but she couldn't have done it alone. Marcus had given her the chance, and now she was determined to make the most of it. As she took the microphone, she looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom had become her friends and colleagues over the past few months. I just want to say thank you, she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. To Marcus, to the team, and to everyone who has supported me along the way. I never imagined I'd be standing here today, but I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm excited to continue working with all of you to make this company even better. The applause rang out again, and Sophie smiled, feeling the warmth and support of everyone around her. This was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Sophie settled into her new role, quickly proving herself as an effective and respected leader. Marcus, as always, was by her side, guiding her when needed, but trusting her to make decisions on her own. Their partnership grew stronger with each passing day, and together they led the company into a new era of success. One evening, long after most of the staff had gone home, Sophie walked through the office. She paused for a moment to take it all in. The journey had been long and filled with challenges, but she had made it. She had found her place. And as she looked out over the city skyline, she knew that this was only the beginning of a bright and promising future.